So welcome to episode 4 of the Live Long and Healthy podcast. And we're here with Matthew Gilmore of AquaChill Drinking Water Systems. I'm happy you made it. This is, I think, will be a great topic for people to hear, everything water. There's a lot to learn. And I'll just preface it by saying how we met. I was at, I never really thought much of water filtration, reverse osmosis. I was at Kessler Physical Therapy in West Caldwell. And there was a water cooler. I noticed that there was no cooler, no jug.
No bottle.
So I took a cup of water and it tasted perfect, like Poland Spring. And I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And in my office, Poland Spring just messes up the delivery every month. My lease partner will cancel the delivery and then they'll deliver anyway. And then you have to lug them in and fill it up. It's just a big pain. And, so that's when I reached out to you and, you came in and schooled me about it. And it was actually more cost effective than dealing with Poland Springs. And you don't have to deal with a giant corporation. I know whenever we had issues, Christina would call up Poland Springs and she on hold for 45 minutes. She can't even get someone on the phone. And when I called you, just like my business, you actually answered the phone, which is great. I really only like dealing with businesses like that, in today's day and age with computerized call centers and just terrible customer service.
Right?
Yeah. So basically that's how we met. And then I got the system at my office and then at my house. So, do you want to get into a little of the background, how you got into the field?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, thank you for inviting me today. I've never done this before, so it's a little strange. Hopefully I'm speaking to the mic correctly.
Perfect.
I used to be in the corporate world in Manhattan. I was in the spirits industry. And I was just at a point where I felt like I needed to do something for myself. And I was frustrated with the corporate structure. And this business kind of fell into my lap. I knew a gentleman. I was working with a gentleman in the spirits industry who actually owned this business. And he brought it to my attention. After a couple of years of kind of sledging it out in the corporate world, I put some energy into figuring out, is this something that would work for me? And I loved the fact that it was water. It was still beverage. It was in a framework that I had been working in, but it was the health option. At that time, everything you just described about your frustration with using a bottle system, that was my focus in terms of like, oh, I see I could go to an office. They're using a 5-gallon bottle. They're spending a certain amount of money. We could come in, get rid of that bottle. No one in the staff, no one has to deal with bottles anymore. No more deliveries, no more heavy lifting, like you said. And then the cost, I could come in and improve the cost. So it was environmentally, it's perceived a better option as well because you're not dealing with all the plastic from the 5-gallon bottles. And we could produce unlimited water where the office never has to wait for water again. So I jumped into this business in 2007. I can't believe it's been 15 years since I've been in the water business. My focus was going commercially to offices in the first kind of 10 years of the business and trying to, show them better ways to get drinking water for the staff. The pandemic definitely shifted things, and I'm doing a lot more residential today. In addition to the commercial, that's still a nice part of the business. But there are growing concerns and issues with tap water, and a combination of environmental issues we're having with just our manufacturing issues. Tap water is becoming a bigger concern too. So it's nice that I'm in a business where I understand to some degree how I can help people access better drinking water.
Nice. Yeah, tap water. We're going to dive into that, definitely. I'd like to start off with reverse osmosis. The first time I experienced reverse os was down at my brother-in-law's house down in South Carolina. And there was, the 2 faucets, and then there was the little faucet where that was the drinking water. But I think because I'm not used to South Carolina water, it had like an egg smell to it. So I wasn't a fan. So it was just.
The little faucet had an egg
smell?
The
little, yeah.
Because a lot of times
maybe all the
that.
water. I don't know. I think it's just because I'm not used to South Carolina. It's kind of in the woods on the river. So. But then once I tasted it at Kessler, I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So, but how does reverse os work?
So it's interesting. Your experience is a common experience that I sometimes find as a challenge for what I do. Commercially, I'll go into an office and I'll present, they're using 5-gallon bottles. I'll present to them this idea to use a reverse osmosis with a water cooler. And they'll tell me they've done it before and they're not interested, and no one liked the system. And I say, do you know what kind of filter technology you had? They never know. And I can guarantee it was a carbon filtered system. Because what people may not understand with water and cleaning water, there are different types of filters that can clean the water for you. And carbon filtration is good. Carbon filtration is water that is like, most people know Brita filters. That's a carbon filter. Refrigerator filters, that's a carbon filter. These are widely used for cleaning water. Its main function is to take chemicals out of water, and the main chemical in our tap water is chlorine, and that contributes to a bad taste. Depending on where you are, if you're in the Carolinas, there could be other things impacting the taste and the smell of the water, and that was probably your experience. What I work with is reverse osmosis, and reverse osmosis is the next level. It's what I call bottled quality water. When you drink bottled water, which I actually might take a sip of, what you may not be thinking about is where that water came from and the quality of the water. And so in the bottled water industry, 75% of bottled water is spring water. 25% of it is municipal water. And municipal water is just city water. All of that water is treated the same way. Whether it's spring or municipal, it's all treated by reverse osmosis. Reason being, reverse osmosis at its base level is made up of 3 filters, or 3 stages. You can increase the stages. You can have a 4-stage reverse osmosis, a 5-stage, a 6-stage. My personal feeling is the higher the stage, you have to have really bad water. And if you're on city water, you don't have really bad water. So it's a little redundant to have a 6-stage system at that level.
And why is city water a little better than, I guess, like country water or up in the mountains?
Water. So there's 2 types of water. There's well water or there's municipal water for anybody, for any building. Building may have access to water that's a well, or they'll have access to city water. Well water definitely is of a bigger concern because there's no organization looking at your well water. So if you are on a well system, it's advised to have your water tested once a year. I think in New Jersey, 1/7 of buildings and households are on well systems. And oftentimes a well water is better quality water. Some believe it's very subjective than municipal water, but at other times it could be bad due to environmental issues. If you are in an area where there's a lot of industry, that could potentially cause problems. If
pollution, like downstream pollution.
Yeah, toxic pollution. From that perspective, what is reverse osmosis? So reverse osmosis is made up of 3 filters. Its first stage system is a sediment filter. And that's this filter here I brought in. And this is a simple filter that you can physically see. It's kind of a soft fabric-like filter. It's got a lot of hair and threads. This grabs dirt and heavy solids out of water. It would be very interesting to show you what these look like sometimes when they come out after being used. Depending on the water, I will sometimes literally feel like I'm pulling it out of mud. It'll be water, but this, you could take your hand and it's mud on your hand.
Black, brown?
Black, brown. Literal, like whatever you think mud looks like.
And that's what's in the hard tube. And then
Yeah, so there's 3 stages. So there's, this is the first stage. So when the water goes into the filter, the first thing it hits is the sediment filter. The sediment filter grabs heavy dirt and solids out of the water. The second stage is a carbon filter. This is a solid carbon block. There's different types of carbon filters that are used, but in terms of what it's doing for the water is it's addressing chemical. The main chemical, as I mentioned before, is chlorine. This filter as a standalone is what a lot of refrigerators will have. It's a Brita filter. depending on size and quality, you get different, your water comes out in different rates. The third stage, and this is what makes it reverse osmosis, is this is a thin film composite membrane. I'm not going to mess the bag's a little tough to open.
Yeah.
This is a sponge, a very thin sponge that's kind of wrapped on top of itself multiple times. And what happens is when the water comes through these two filters, it actually enters the bottom of this filter. And the water shoots up inside, and all the impurities that are left in the water after hitting these two filters get squeezed out by this. And then the clean water comes out on top. And this filter actually produces two streams of water once the water is passed through it. You have a stream of water that's all the impurities, and then you have a stream of water that's the clean product that you drink. Why I mention that is when you think of quality and water quality, I often will think about filters. In a Brita filter, take the traditional pitcher, you put it under your sink, you fill up the pitcher, water goes through that filter. The same volume that came out of the faucet is still in that pitcher. So the question is like, what was removed from it? Versus when you have a reverse osmosis system, not only do you need access to a water source, you need access to a drain source too, because those impurities are being removed. And so when I talk about impurities, how do I know what the impurities are? We have a meter that counts the particulates. So all of water has particulates in it. And tap water usually has somewhere between, it depends on where you live, but it has somewhere between 100 particulates on a parts per million basis, could have as high as 1,000. On average in New Jersey, I see around 300, 400 particulates.
And particulates are just like non-dissolved solids?
Yeah, so they're total dissolved solids. What the EPA has a set of standards that have been established, and there's essentially particulates that are allowed to be passed through. They're allowed to be consumed because they're non-harmful, non-toxic. They're at a low dose. However, not a lot, but definitely our tap water has changed, and the contaminants in our tap water are becoming a problem where studies have shown certain contaminants, if you have it in your water, can be cancer causing as a main toxicity. And so with that in mind, I kind of got off track there, but with the reverse osmosis system, those three stages will clean the water. And so if I have a TDS reading coming from the tap that's, say, 300, I'm expecting to see a reading of 30 coming out of the reverse osmosis system.
Well, so for people listening, so in North Caldwell, we got the reverse osmosis from you under the sink. So, and we got you added the little faucet which is the drinking water only.
Correct.
But in our refrigerator, we have a water filter, which we don't really use for drinking. I guess it filters the ice. Mm-hmm. So that just isn't as adequate as this, obviously, because it's really just the one filter.
In terms of quality, and if quality means having the most pure form of water with the fewest amount of contaminants, then a reverse osmosis system is going to give you what we all are accustomed to in terms of bottled quality water. I think bottled water is what is perceived the standard of clean drinking water. Statistically, that seems to be the case. More and more people are buying bottled water today than they have ever before.
Like in the 80s.
In the 80s, it wasn't even a thought, right? You just drank from the tap water. You drank from the hose. There was no taste. There was no taste issue.
You think it was better back then? Wasn't as...
There is argument that the quality of water was better back then. We have, being in America, we have a municipal system and a water system that's been established. It's the best in the world. We know we have the best tap water. We open up a faucet in comparison to other parts of the world. We know drinking that water is safe. Unfortunately, what's happened is environmentally, with the amount of industry that's happened over the past 40 years, I think it was in the 70s. I'd have to look that one up. But the municipal water system that we have now, it's only been around, I don't know the length of time, but I'm losing my train
Since
of
the
thought.
50s, maybe the municipal.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to say is that environmentally, water has gotten worse. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
In New Jersey specifically, there's a toxin called PFOA, perfluoroalkyl substance. I'm not very good at saying it, but everyone knows it as PFOA. And there have been notices in the past couple of years that the levels of PFOA have exceeded what's deemed safe.
Yeah, I think in Essex Fells, North Caldwell, we all got that letter.
Yes. And there's two things about that. New Jersey changed their standards, and that's what started to spike the problem. So the PFOA has always been in the water, and it wasn't an issue a few years ago because the standards to allow a certain amount of PFOA was higher.
And they lowered it,
And then-
that's why everybody failed, I guess, so to speak.
And New Jersey is the first state to do that. But it is an issue. There have been enough studies to show that long-term consumption of PFOA or PFOS can be carcinogenic. It's more of an issue for children, women who are pregnant, elderly, anybody who's immunocompromised. That's where it becomes a bigger issue. But it's also not going to harm you, the levels that we have right now, if it's not your one source of water every day.
Gotcha. So if you're just having it a little here and there, like,
It's
when
to
you're-
be of concern, absolutely, because who knows where
Yeah.
things are going in the future.
Well, so you mentioned toxins in tap water. There can be toxins that are carcinogenic or cancer causing. Is that, I was going to ask you what particular toxins. So obviously I'm assuming PFOA. Is there anything else?
PFOA is the main one. I mean, you get pesticides in your water from industry. We get definitely other chemicals
Roundup.
from industry. Yeah, PFOA, if I didn't explain that, is Teflon.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So PFOA was created by, I believe it was DuPont. Yeah.
See the movie Black Water, right? Was it
Dark Waters.
Dark Water? Whew,
And there's
movie.
a documentary too.
Yeah.
Devil in What We Know, I think. But it's the same story. And essentially DuPont was, I mean, this chemical is called the Forever chemical. It's an amazing chemical in regards to manufacturing. It's used, Teflon as a nonstick item. It's used in paint. It's used in firefighting foam. It's used in wax. I mean, it's used everywhere. So much so that I think they even can test and find it in most of our blood already. But yeah, so there's a lot of chemical issues that can impact the water. This one has gotten the attention of the government. In the infrastructure bill 2 years ago, the government set aside $1 billion specifically to start addressing this problem. What's crazy is it's nothing. $1 billion is nothing.
State or federal?
Federal.
Federal.
New Jersey estimates just to fix and repair not only the PFOA issue, but aging infrastructure issue, because that's another problem. They need $9 billion. New Jersey as a state alone needs $9 billion. The government has allocated $1 billion to be, spread around to whatever communities apply for it that need it. And I'll just finish this note. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
The communities that are most at risk are these low impoverished communities. I don't know if you know that there's still 2 million people in America who don't even have running water. Isn't that
No,
crazy?
I didn't know that. 2 million.
It's a small percentage if you take the percentage of people in America, but 2 million people is still a lot.
Now, I assume that counts. What locations is this? Homeless or?
No. So there are communities that just, low income communities that just don't get the attention. There are places, let me think, where was it? Texas, New Mexico, I think Nevada. There's a handful of places. Actually, I probably have it in my resources.
Could
here.
be really rural areas where it's just.
Well, there's just low income communities too, though.
Yeah.
Usually, rural areas where there's less industry will be well water. So it's where there's enough infrastructure for there to be piping to deliver water. But so the fact that the government is allocating money to PFOA in local towns in New Jersey are getting notices, and New Jersey's taking the lead. Like, there's obviously a real issue with that long term if you're consuming it long term. Filtering your water is going to address that for you. So that's the good news.
And just getting back to PFOA, for people that haven't seen the movie Dark Water.
Yeah, Dark Water. Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. Essentially what was going on, I think, with DuPont factories in the 50s maybe, or 60s, 70s?
Yeah. So, well, the story started, I think, in the 70s or 80s. There was a farmer and his cattle were dying.
Because the runoff.
Yeah, because of the runoff, which DuPont said they weren't doing.
Yeah.
And they were having crazy diseases and deformities.
People that worked... And the people that worked.
His animals, and then I think his children, I think everyone in his family got cancer, and then the town was having issues too with cancer. So yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, all the chemical companies, that's just the reality of chemicals. Mm-hmm. There's other chemicals in our water that are also bad. There's other types of like PFOA and PFOS is like one specific type of chemical that was used widely. So DuPont stopped using those chemicals, but they use another type of PF chemical.
Or they changed the name to something else, so it's not on the ban list.
I'm not knowledgeable enough to know, but I know it's a different name, and it's also an issue.
Well, the last thing on that and Teflon, it amazes me today. Like I'm afraid to use. I'm trying to live a life as non-toxic as possible to avoid cancer, hopefully. And I don't use nonstick pans. Like I use stainless steel if I make eggs or something, and it's a pain to clean. But like, I mean, probably 8 to 9 out of 10 households still use nonstick pans. I mean, and then there's all these like advertising things, like you got the granite stick pan and the orange one. I mean, it's all none of it could be good.
Well, our kind of modern life isn't good. If you want to try to limit things that are toxic, it's hard to. Everything is toxic around us. You talk to an environmental engineer, they're going to tell you everything around you has toxicity to you. I was going to say, I like to believe and live by the philosophy of like, eat well, sleep well, rest, low stress. Mm-hmm. That's going to lead you to a longer life of health.
Yeah.
But whatever you can do to remove toxicity from your life, the better.
Yeah. So was there any other chemicals in tap water?
Well, there's a lot of stuff. There's arsenic. There can be lead's another big issue.
Well, that's the famous story
Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
And Newark too. Newark has been doing a remediation since I think 2018. So I would think they're near the end. But lead's an issue because of aging infrastructure primarily. And New Jersey is one of the first states to adopt plumbing. So, lots of that plumbing I'm sure has been updated, but I also am sure that there's a lot still out there, especially in homes, older homes. So when the water passes through those pipes, it picks up particulates.
Would that be older, like, I guess older water pipes for cast iron, right? Or is that
Yeah,
I know drain lines.
Right.
Everything's PVC now, so I guess that's.
Well, no, you definitely have cast iron piping still.
All the old stuff.
Yeah, that's still around.
Yeah.
You have PVC, but that's newer. So going the way water gets to us from the municipality. So like, I don't know if where do we get our water from? Do you know that?
Well, I think Essex Fells and North Caldwell are well, and I was going to ask you. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, when it's well water, it's harder water because it's in the ground. There's more minerals, perhaps, because I know you're supposed to have a water softener in North Caldwell and Essex Fells. But Lyndhurst, town I grew up in, I believe comes from reservoir. That might be Passaic Valley Water Commission, where you don't have to have a water softener. I mean, maybe you still could have it, but
no, you're pretty accurate on that. So we have aquifers that we get our drinking water from, our tap water. And then we also have like reservoirs, like surface level water, streams, rivers, reservoirs, water that's sitting in an aquifer, in a well type of underground setup. It's picking up more minerals. Hard water typically is magnesium and calcium. It's a high dose. From a consumption perspective, that's a very good thing to get. That's a very good thing to drink, is magnesium and calcium. As humans, we typically are pretty deficient in magnesium, and it's a vital nutrient for body health, as well as calcium. So from a health perspective, that isn't a bad thing. But in terms of your home and your appliances and your faucets, it's a terrible thing. It just can destroy equipment. It can destroy a dishwasher, a laundry machine, but it also creates that corrosion around your faucet's edge. So that's why you want to soften the water. From a drinking perspective, the tap water, it comes from the aquifer or the lake or the river, the stream, and it gets funneled into a central processing plant. And from there, local towns are primarily responsible for it. Like New Jersey, I think New Jersey has something like 600 of these processing plants to serve their communities. It may be more. And this is where, our tap water is made, basically. It gets treated. This is where they're trying to remove the PFOA, at least reduce it. Every year we get a report. You're supposed to get a report from your water company that spells out the quality of how, all these elements are in your water and how dangerous they are for you. And all of our municipalities are following standards that were set up by the New Jersey Environmental Protection Agency, which is also then directed by the National Federal Environmental Protection Agency. And then it gets delivered to us through pipes. And so in New Jersey, we have a lot of old pipes, and Newark has been addressing that. I think we have a pretty good system in place where they're able to assess where problems are. And ultimately, it's got to be just testing the water. Oh my God, we got a high level of lead. We got to fix this. And for the most part, the water is deemed safe by EPA standards. Where the issue lies is that the EPA standards haven't really changed in over 20 years. And people question if they're doing enough, addressing enough of the issues in tap water. There's a website called the environmentalworkinggroup.org, and they've done a national analysis of every water company in the United States. And you can go on this website, type in your zip code, and look up their report of the quality of your water.
Oh, your tap water.
Your town water.
Environmentalworkinggroup.org.
EWG.org. It's and that's really fascinating. And their consensus is the EPA needs to do more.
All right, so it seems that I think we discussed a little bit about reverse os versus tap water, and then what I learned today. Now you were saying how the bottled water is essentially 75% spring, 25% city
in terms of the brand.
Yeah,
right. Like on the shelf, 75% of the bottles the brands that you can buy are spring water. 25% of the brands you buy are municipal water.
Oh, and they just
not that
clean
the
it up
water's
and
been
sell
mixed that way.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I got you. But they're both treated by reverse os. So,
at a plant.
So I guess my question for you is reverse osmosis versus bottled water. Obviously, it's easy. I guess it's more cost effective for reverse os. What about health implications? I know my concern with bottled water was when they would drop off the shipment outside the garage, my house. It could be on a hot summer day, and those plastic bottles could be sitting in the sun for 6 hours. And then I think they say when the plastic bottle is in the sun, what's supposed to leach in the water? Perhaps
chemicals,
PFOAs or no? Out of the BPA from the plastic.
BPA.
And you don't know what the situation was in the warehouse, wherever this stuff was. So, I mean, I assume your thought is reverse os is a healthier option.
My personal feeling is if you can treat your own water, that's going to be the safest because you know where the source is coming from, you know how it's being treated, you know how it's being stored and used. That'll be the best scenario. Bottled water is fine. Bottled water is great. This can lead us into the conversation of pH and alkaline, because that's another type of water that has grown in popularity in the past 10 years.
The alkaline water.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was asking about that.
What is your familiarity at this stage?
With that, not much. You see it in the store. You walk into Whole Foods or wherever, and there's a couple brands where it seems to be a big advertising thing where alkaline water,
And do you know, that's about the extent of what you're familiar with.
Maybe if you deal with heartburn, like a lot of people deal with, maybe you're thinking that if you drink that, you're going to have less heartburn. But
yeah, so I had a client ask me 10 years ago. He's like, I need to serve alkaline water to I think he was a chiropractor as well. And he was saying he wanted to serve his clients alkaline water. And this was 2010. I was like, let me look into that is basically where I got to. And so I slowly learned about alkaline water and why people are interested in it. It's very subjective in terms of the physical health or the type of health it can help with. It's a very subjective thing in terms of doctors who agrees with the belief system in alkaline water as being something effective or not. The belief is this: with alkaline water, you are addressing the pH of your body. When dealing with health, the gentleman who started our company was an older man, and he had some health issues, and he went to a bunch of doctors, and they started asking about his diet. That was like the first thing they started asking about. He had cancer, and he had a diet that was rich in salts and fats and sugars, which is like the American diet, meats and cheeses and potatoes. They switched him into a diet that was alkaline. The diet was, fruits and vegetables, grains and nuts. And in the process of doing that, he learned about the difference between acidic and alkaline. And every substance has a pH. Do you know the pH scale?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at it on that photo we did.
So the pH scale goes from 0 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
0 to 5 is the acidic scale. 5 to 6 is neutral, and 8 plus is considered alkaline.
Mm-hmm.
Food falls in this category. Water falls into this category. So tap water is technically neutral. It's got a lot of minerals still in it. It's got a lot of particulates, as we were talking about. Bottled water technically is acidic, and so I think we always associate maybe a negative connotation with the word acidic or acid. It's not necessarily negative, but it comes up acidic because bottled water has been stripped of those elements. It's been stripped of its particulates, and it's kind of empty. It's like Swiss cheese. It's got a lot of holes in it. What alkaline water is, 8 plus, typically you're going to find minerals mixed in to this filter to create alkaline water. Like for example, I do a magnesium calcium filter. So what happens is the reverse osmosis cleans the water, then we funnel it through the alkaline filter. The alkaline filter is kind of like water running over stones in a river. It's picking up minerals. Mm-hmm. And so it's picking up magnesium and calcium. The same minerals that are found in hard water, we're now putting back into water to make it alkaline. And this is all because of health. That's the I think success of this category and why people are choosing alkaline water is the belief system behind drinking it's going to be better for my body. Mm-hmm. There's some studies, not enough. There's small studies that suggest that. Stomach issues is one mm-hmm. that people kind of shared. But there's other things. It always comes back to cancer.
Yeah.
There was another, and I was told this, but I was told when you take a cancer cell and you put it in an acidic substance of pH, that's, the pH is acidic, that's actual food for cancer. It causes cancer to grow. If you take cancer and put it into a petri dish and it's an alkaline substance, nothing happens. It stays where it is. And so, these are different stories over the years I've heard or read in regards to why people believe in drinking alkaline water from a health perspective. but I do know it's very subjective.
Well, and I had you add that at my house. We added the alkaline filter. I think it was an extra filter. And then, but reverse os is acidic like Poland Spring.
Exactly.
Like bottled water.
So bottled water technically is acidic. So anybody who's drinking bottled water is drinking water that's acidic. Now, your bottled water may have minerals added back into it, so it's not so acidic.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be alkaline because they would be marketing it as alkaline that way.
Yeah. So technically, with what you do, if you go reverse os, like I chose to go the potentially healthiest route and add the alkaline filter.
I personally believe in magnesium and calcium.
Yeah.
I know those are nutrients and those, it's not an active supplement. It's not that kind of dose, but it can't hurt to know that what you're drinking has got magnesium and calcium in it.
Are you finding more clients are adding that now because it's becoming popular versus not?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely an awareness. There's a growing awareness. Water is interesting. Water, I when I started the business, as I mentioned in the beginning, I really just focused I'm going to be getting rid of the plastic jugs. But I feel like since the pandemic, it's changed even more where, there's a lot of questions about tap water. People are tired of recycling all the bottles. The plastic is also an issue. And then even from a security place, having a system in your home that makes water, if there's any out of stock issues on water and you're reliant on that, this eliminates that problem, that stress. This is a great thing to have from even that perspective. Let's just even a storm, we're having our weather patterns are changing. They're more intense. Anything, that is uncertain in the future, having control in your own home is better. So I've found that that's another powerful tool.
I didn't even think of that if they run out.
Yeah, because there's water's like one of the food products that potentially could have issues in the near future.
That's interesting. I wanted to touch on that. Like 10, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, I know in certain parts of the world it is an issue, but what's your thoughts on
the future of water?
Yeah, I mean, is it bleak and dark
like everything, like everything else? I think I don't know what the future looks like for tap water and you could look at America as one conversation, the globe as another conversation when talking about the future of water. We're very fortunate to be in the United States. That just hands down, I have lots of gratitude for that. Our infrastructure is set up already. Will the quality of tap water fluctuate? Yeah, I think it will. But I think we have the tools to manage it. But water's definitely going to become, the scarcity of water is one I think people question a lot. And I don't really know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be okay. I do think it's going to be more toxic. We're going to have more issues with our tap water because the cost to change an aging infrastructure, you're just not going to get those changes happening quickly. And our manufacturing processes, no matter how diligent a company will be to make sure, there's no runoff and they're clean as can be, that's only going to continue to increase as well.
Two things, but one quick question I had. I was curious your opinion before we get into the state and local government responsibilities and challenges to provide safe drinking water. Is that in the 80s, when I grew up in grammar school in the 90s, there was water fountains everywhere, and they seemed like big machines. And I drank a ton of it, and even at the health clubs, they had water fountains. Were those big water fountains? Was that were they filtering the water at all, or was it just straight up tap? Because it seemed like it was a big machine back then.
I would say when I was in grade school, it was just tap water.
Yeah, coming out of those fountains.
Today, I believe if there's a fountain, there's a filter attached to it. It's a carbon filter.
That makes sense. Yeah, like the refrigerator. Yeah. So the other topic, I think maybe we touched on it a little, but we wanted to get into state and local governments' responsibilities and challenges to provide safe drinking water, and why it's somewhat out of their control is what you were telling me.
Well, so yeah, I think I've mentioned that the EPA kind of sets the standards, right? And then every state has to take that lead, and then every town has to follow the state's lead. Where it becomes out of their control is how our water system works, because there's runoff, and the runoff from manufacturing can impact the quality of the water. The pipes in the water runs through the aging infrastructure. So by the time the water does get to your faucet in your home, there's variables that are out of their control.
I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
It's the transportation from the plant to your house where they can still pick up stuff.
As far as Roundup, the weed killer, that comes up a lot. I forget the chemical, the bad chemical in there. But I mean, that gets used all the time. You know, people are spraying weed killer on the weeds coming out of the curbs, which is going to
pesticides is a big
it's going to run right into the sewer. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure whatever company manufactures that has some serious lobbyists.
Yes.
Trying to prevent it from getting banned. Probably isn't going to get banned.
Well, fertilizer it's a chemical, right?
Yeah.
And the way we run our agriculture system, you need fertilizer, and it's an issue.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of fertilizer comes from Ukraine. So that does run off into our water. The aging infrastructure runs off into our water. So that's where it picks up more contaminants. Our processing plants, you know, there is somewhat of a recycling system there where the processing plants, like the water that we use in our home when we flush the toilet, when we run the sink and it goes through the drain, that water goes back into a plant, gets cleaned, and then it gets put back into the public. It gets put back into streams, rivers, and after it's been cleaned. So there's a bit of a cycling process, because then we grab those elements again and cycle them through for consumption. And so issues like pesticides, chemicals from manufacturing, gasoline, people dealing with stuff at their home, all that runs off into the ground, and it's a potential issue.
How about fluoride with water? That's
so fluoride. You know, some people want fluoride in their water. Fluoride was a value in our water system because it helped treat tooth decay. And today, I think with our, you know, the way we brush our teeth, using toothpaste, mouthwash, it seems to be more normalized, where that's kind of a modern life routine. You're getting fluoride from that.
from the mouthwash and toothpaste.
Because when I use a reverse osmosis system, it does remove fluoride from the water.
Is that standard that most municipalities add fluoride at the treatment plants?
That's a good question, and I believe it is. I believe it's within the standards.
And from the movie we were discussing, Dark Waters, wasn't there an issue with fluoride? Because I remember a scene where the actor was driving around and like kid was riding a bike and the teeth were black. I don't know if that had to do with too much fluoride or...
No.
Because too much fluoride is bad, right? I could be wrong.
I know there is... I know you could find argument to say fluoride's bad. Like everything else. I've had both questions come up to me. In terms of consumption. Like, don't I want fluoride or I don't want fluoride? I mean, I've had that, people have asked me about that in both ways.
Debatable.
Yeah, I mean, everything is debatable. Alkaline water versus standard bottled water can be debated, Like, it's very subjective. I always come down to the point of view, if you can control your own water, and you know how it's being made and where it's being stored, that's going to be your best option.
Just don't drink tap water. I think that's up. I don't think that's debatable.
I think,
or don't drink a lot of it.
I think it's if it's your one source of consumption 24/7, which I just don't think a lot of people are that way anymore. But if it's your one source of consumption, it could present an issue long term.
So when I make my kids mac and cheese, 6 ounces, no, is it 6 or I think 6 ounces of water goes in the pot before I boil the macaroni.
Yes.
And
are you using tap water or are you using?
it's a good question. I have 3 choices. So I'm using the water out of the refrigerator, which is that filter.
Carbon filter.
Yeah. Or the reverse os. But what about bottled water versus the refrigerator? I'm just not using tap. I mean, I know you dump the water out, but I'm just not using tap.
Yeah.
So
No.
I guess if you have a reverse os, I guess I'm asking the question for the people that don't have a reverse os and they have, say, Poland Spring jug, 5-pound jug, 5-gallon jug, and they have the filter in the refrigerator. Maybe they don't want to waste 6 ounces.
I'll tell you, most people aren't thinking that deeply.
Yeah.
About the quality of the water that they're using to cook with.
Yeah.
I think that your tap water, if you're using it to cook with, isn't going to hurt you. The real issue is the long-term consumption.
Yeah.
That, and then are you young? Are you pregnant? Are you old? Do you have health issues? That's the other variable that leads to that problem.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Any questions for me? Any other topics you think that we haven't covered?
I think the only other area that's a real concern is the plastic. Like bottled water is so highly consumed. It's the number one beverage choice for people. It's mostly bottled in plastic. You have some companies now doing it in cans and boxes, but the easiest, most preferred way is in a bottle.
And it's getting thinner and thinner, the plastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's just cost management, I think. But, look, I'm in the water business. I know the good and the bad, but it's kind of hard to avoid the plastic bottle.
And that was the BPA coming out of plastic. If it's in the sunlight,
it's basically the chemicals, right? Like, what's the chemical issue in that plastic? But so it's the same thing as PFOA. So they took out BPA. There's another chemical in there. I'm sure it's not good.
Yeah.
It's if you cannot drink out of plastic, that'd be great. The problem is that the plastic is hard to destroy. That's the problem. And our landfills. It takes like 1,000 years for plastic to disintegrate.
Whew.
We only recycle 10%. Our recycling system is kind of a sham. We don't really have an effective recycling system. And the plastics, the microplastics in plastic are found everywhere now. Just like PFOA. We have it in our blood. It's in everything. And then you have the physical form of the plastic, affecting the oceans and affecting the planet. So that's something that is an issue. And if water is the number one consumed beverage and that's its delivery mechanism, we're just, we're continuing to contribute to that problem.
Yeah. Have you heard about the that floating?
Yes.
Floating plastic island of garbage in the ocean somewhere?
There's the patch.
The patch?
The Great Garbage Patch.
Pacific Ocean maybe? Or
yes.
Indian Ocean?
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of those actually in the oceans.
Yeah.
And, that's just unfortunate part of humanity that I don't know if we're able to really change. We're so ingrained in the way we live our lives and the way society functions.
Yeah.
Plastic is everywhere. It's a cheap, easy way to hold things. And, we try to be as idealistic and do the right things every day. I mean, that's how I approach life. It's like, what choices can I make today that's going to be the best for me today?
Yeah.
We can't be perfect. It's impossible to be perfect.
No plastic bags at ShopRite, Food Town anymore, except for when you put your produce.
I know.
There's still plastic.
Yeah. Look, New Jersey's taking steps to address environmental issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. But that would be another kind of topic for water is just the impact that the plastic has.
Yeah. All right.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate
Anything else?
This was cool. I hope it was informative for you.
Definitely. I could talk about this all day. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.